Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. My name is Suleiman Steele, and I am the co-host of the Uncovering Greatness podcast. Um, Yet again, today I'm joined by Barry Mitchell, so you know it's going to be a good conversation. We're going to be talking about some cool stuff. But yeah, before we kick it off, um, just want to run through some programs that we have going on over the next couple of weeks and months. So don't forget, on the 23rd, this coming Friday, we have the cash flow game happening from 6 to 9 p.m. at the Corporate Conference Center in Edenville. The 26th of June, we have the Ignite Your Sales preview event. That's also happening at 6 p.m. It's a 2-hour event, and that's going to be really awesome. Just give you a quick sort of preview into what the sales explosion is about. Then we also have the Awaken Your Greatness program happening on the 1st of July. And then we have the sales explosion happening on the 4th and 5th of August. Don't forget, I will be putting all the links below. So yeah, that's my little intro. Barry, how you doing?
Cool. How's it, Sully? How you doing? Hello, everybody. Good to be with you on another Uncovering Greatness podcast. And yeah, we just going to continue our discussion that we've been having this month around environment is greater than will. So good to be with you.
Yeah, and I mean, it's weirdly enough, it feels like the month has flown by. But we've definitely, I feel like we've covered a lot when it comes to environments is greater than will, not just on the podcast, but also at Circle. And I think one of the things that I really wanted to talk about is leadership and environment, right? So essentially, like, what role does the leader play in creating the environment?
Yeah. So I mean, put it pretty simple, is that when you lead something, it's your responsibility to make sure that you create the right environment to create the results that you want to create. So if you look at any great leader throughout history, well, they've been taking responsibility to create the context that they want to create, that they want in order to create the results that they want. So environment is not just the place that you operate. It's the words that you say. It's the rituals that you undertake. It's the disciplines that you put into effect. It's the ideologies, if you want, that you repeat and that people buy into, that creates that, and ultimately that's what creates culture. So for me, it's in leading anything, in leading your business, in leading your home, in any form of leadership, in leading a community. You join you join a committee and you head up that committee. It's your responsibility as the leader to create an environment that will allow people to succeed. Often in sales explosion, and you hear me say this, Suli, often when we set in the rules, the fifth rule is Barry is the government.
Yeah.
And that brings up a lot of chuckles, and depending where I'm doing it, it's I go, okay, so what do I mean by that? And often the words like you're going to force us to do things, and you're corrupt, you're going to be corrupt, and there's going to be bribery, and all the little voices that come around governments. And what I say at the end of the day is, sure, I didn't ask what do governments do. I asked what is a government. And for me, in very simple terms, a government's job is to create an environment that within which the citizens who live and operate in that environment can succeed safely. Not succeed easily, not necessarily easy. It's not about create an environment that everyone can succeed easy. It's create an environment that people can succeed safely. And what does that entail? That entails setting rules. That entails holding people accountable. That entails upholding the rules yourself. That entails making decisions for the greater good of the greatest number of people rather than for the greater good of the individuals. to name a few things. So, you know, when I'm running any of my seminars, any of our training, right up front, I set those rules, and I do say my job for 2 days or 3 days or 5 days or whatever the program is running for. I say my job is to ensure that I create an environment that everybody in this room can succeed, that everybody in this room can grow, that everybody in this room can receive value if they play the game in the environment that's been created. So, you know, and why do I do that? Because pretty simply, when I'm training, I'm leading a group of people, I'm leading a room, and I'm leading people to move from where they're at to move to where they want to get to. So, you know, when it comes all, it starts with leadership. You know, it starts with with leaders. When you start your own business, well, you got to set up the rules. You got to set up the code of honor. You got to set up the rules. You got to set up the values that you're going to live by. And then you employ somebody new. Well, you bring them into that environment, and that determines, you know, how you conduct yourself, and the environment that you created will determine how they fit in and the success that they create.
Mm. So I mean, if you look at like, so you mentioned governments, right? And so one of the things you said is taking accountability, holding people accountable. So I'm not going to go globally here. I'm just going to talk about this, like the South African government. Do you feel that one, we are holding ourselves accountable, which then means we can hold our governments accountable? Because I think,
well, I think,
are we not leaders in our own?
Yeah, well, if you go to the simple form of leadership, is, you know, you've got to lead yourself. Most people are not leading themselves. So you've got to lead yourself in order to create any form of change, in order to do anything more than what you're doing at the moment, in order to live a bigger life and create bigger results. You have to lead yourself. You know, you want to get fit, you better be able to lead yourself to the friggin' gym. You better lead yourself, you know, to be disciplined in eating. So, you know, in when it comes down to as an individual, you have to lead yourself. So, you know, the question you ask, I suppose, is in terms of governments, should we hold governments accountable? Of course we should. We should also hold ourselves accountable. First up, we should hold ourselves accountable. Then we can hold other people accountable. Accountable to what? Accountable to what we agree we said we were going to do. Accountable to the rules that we're playing by. You know, accountable to the laws, and so on and so on. So right up front, it starts with you. You know, leadership starts with you, and accountability starts with you, and discipline starts with you. Once you can lead you, then you can lead other people. If you can't lead you, you can't lead other people. I mean, you know, I see this in a lot of organizations. People think leadership is a title. It's not a title. Leadership is action, and the action starts with you. You know, you see, I mean, we can cite many examples around the world where just because people have title or someone voted them into office, they term they're a leader. They're not leaders. They not in my state of the word anyway. They're not leading to create a greater good for the greatest number of people. They're not creating they're not creating an environment where everybody has the opportunities to succeed in. Very often they're self-focused. They're creating an environment that they can succeed in.
Yeah.
You know, so it starts that piece of accountability. You know, you talk about the word accountability. Accountability starts with each individual, and it's in your business. You know, it's very hard to hold people accountable if you're not doing the things that you say you're doing. Does that make sense? You know, so you know, you get lots of people that want to hold people accountable, but they're not coming to meetings on time. They're not coming to events on time. They're not delivering on the results that they said they're going to do. But because they're the boss or the owner or have some form of title in management, well, you know, it doesn't apply to me, but it must apply to you. Well, for me, that's bullshit. You know, lead by doing. You know, I can demand sales in my team from anybody. Why? Because I sell. There's no one in my team that sells like I sell. So I can demand accountability on that. When I do well, very often I'm one of the fittest people in that program. I'm the trainer, but I have to be one of the fittest because I teach fitness. Have I always been highly fit? Definitely not. I've had many times in my life where I've been overweight, but I've had to lead myself out of that. I've had to become more and more disciplined so that I become more and more congruent with who I am and what I say. So and how do I allow myself to be able to do that? I create the environment that allows me to be able to succeed. I don't do I do it perfectly all the time? Definitely not. Do I drop the ball often? Definitely. But I take responsibility. I get up, I own my mistakes, and I take accountability for what I'm doing. But I'd like to believe that the more and more I lead my teams, and the more and more I lead customers and do those my clients and do those type of things, the more responsible I become over my life. The more responsible I become over my life, the more I can hold myself accountable. The more I can hold myself accountable, the more I can hold other people accountable. It's very hard for me to say, Sully, you're putting on weight, you're getting unhealthy.
Yeah.
If I weigh 3 times more than you, it just, for me, it doesn't tie up.
Yeah.
So, and that's, yeah. So, we veered off a little bit from this idea of environment, but if as a leader, it's critical that you create the environment that you can succeed in, and that everybody else within your team or whoever you're leading can succeed in as well, to create the results that you want to create. But again, it goes back, it starts with you. Hold yourself accountable first. People will complain that governments don't do things, and then the same people will go do 190 on the highway. You're like, and it flies in the face of, oh, it's okay for me. I'll do 100. Why are you doing 190? Because I can. No, that's bullshit. No, there's a law. So hold to the law. Obey the rules. Why? Because if you obey the rules, then you have the right to complain that someone else is not obeying the laws. It's Blair Singer taught me and Nicole a very powerful piece. It's called collecting stamps. So what people do is they don't hold other people accountable, because what happens is they know that when that person has to hold them accountable, if they have what we call if they've collected some stamps, they can go, yeah, Sully, but hold on. Remember when you did this, and remember when you did that. So I believe the opposite's true. When you hold yourself to a much higher level of living and a much higher level of accountability, it allows you to hold other people to a much higher level of accountability. But it doesn't mean that you never break the laws or break the rules, but you are responsible for when you do.
Yeah.
So what a lot of people are doing, and I see it all over the world today, blaming everybody else. It's everybody else's friggin' fault. It's the government's fault. It's my wife's fault. It's my husband's fault. It's the school's fault. It's everybody else's fault. And then you watch how they're taking responsibility and accountability for their own lives. They're not.
Yeah.
Start taking accountability and responsibility for your life. Then you can hold other people accountable.
Yeah, I mean, like, responsibility and accountability doesn't mean perfection.
Does that make sense?
No, 100%. 100%. And I think that sometimes that's where people get it confused, right? It's like, because they view accountability and responsibility as doing things perfectly. That's the reason why you take responsibility, is because you can't do anything perfectly. So you take responsibility for it, right?
Well, I have a very simple way of looking at those two words, responsibility and accountability. The common word is ability, and no, there is no scientific justification or what do you call it, intellectual piece of paper around this. This is my view on how I look at it. I take the word ability, and then I go, okay, fine. So ability is the central word. So what's ability? Ability is the ability, being able to do something. In simple terms, would you agree with that?
Yeah.
If I say I have the ability to sell, what I'm saying is I am able to get out and sell, in the context of whatever. If I say I have the ability to kick a soccer ball, I'm saying I have the ability to kick a soccer ball. Now it varies. If I say I have the ability to kick a soccer ball, I can kick a soccer ball as well as Ronaldo. Well, okay, great. That's at the highest level, and maybe I can. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
But so you see our ability to do something and how we can do it right now are different things. But if I say I can take a penalty and kick it as well as Ronaldo, and I have a 95% chance of getting it in, and you stand me up for my team, and I go to take the kick, and before I take the kick, I wimp out and say, no, it's not for me. Well, what I'm really wimping out on is the ability, because you trusted. I said I can do it, so you put me up to go do it. What do you expect? You expect me to get up and go do it?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? So first step in those two words is ability. Acknowledge that you have the ability. Let other people acknowledge you have the ability. Then you go out and do it. Now, it doesn't say you go out and do it and you get the perfect results. So in sales, do you have the ability to sell? Yes, I do. Do you have the ability to pick up the phone call? Yes, I do. Can you book appointments? Yes, I can. Can you deliver a sales pitch? Yes, I can. Can you ask questions? Yes, I can. So you go through all those type of things that are needed in order to be good at sales. So someone says, yes, I can do all those things. You go, great. Is there anything else you need? No, I think I can do it. Great. You think you can do it, or you can do it? No, I can do it. Okay, good. So can you start from tomorrow and make 10 calls a day? Yes, I can. Good. Okay, great. Now, what I want to see is tomorrow morning when I meet them, I want to see, or the next day when I meet them, I want to see how they take account of their ability. So they come back in and I say, how did it go? Oh, Barry, I made 12 calls. Excellent. Well done. Okay, so they're giving account for what they said they could do. Oh, I made 4 calls. Okay, good. Now, responsibility is how you respond to the ability that you said you had and how you respond to taking an account. So when you respond, you have the opportunity. You can go what we call above the line. And I learned this from Blessing many years ago. You can go above the line and take responsibility. So I respond in a positive way. I don't make excuses. I don't deny. I don't justify. I don't deny. Okay. So I go, so I only made 4 calls yesterday, Sully. And however, what I will do is I'll make 16 calls tomorrow to make up for the 6. I don't give you a story of why I couldn't, why I didn't, how come, I got on the highway and there was an accident, and then I had to stop, and then my car broke down, and then my wife phoned me because my dog's claw got stuck in the fence. And no, that's making excuses, blame. All I do is say, I went out yesterday, I made 4 calls, I didn't manage to do 10. However, tomorrow I'll do 16. Boom. That's how I respond. Now, guess what I want to see tomorrow? I want to see how you take account of the 16 that you said you're going to do. Now, if you come back and say, "Oh, I only made another 5," well, it's telling me that there's a behavioral problem there. So you take account. Okay. The other thing that people do when they take account is they lie. No. I made 12 calls. I made 12, and then you find out that they're lying. Well, that's giving account, but now that's responding in a dishonest manner. So when it comes back to you as a leader, how you taking account for what you're doing, and then how you responding to how you taking account for the ability that you said you have, and how are you responding to that ability. So responding in the action that you take, responding in taking account of that ability, and responding to what needs to be done next in order to utilize that ability to take it to a higher level. And that, for me, that comes down to 2 key fundamentals when it comes to when it comes to growing as an individual: accountability and responsibility. Now, in leadership, you set that up. In leadership, that starts with you. When you do it, you start demanding that of other people. When you start demanding it of other people, well, then it depends on how they hold themselves to account for the ability that they said they have, and how they respond to that. And I think that's one of the hardest, because it's very hard to hold people accountable. And there's a number of reasons for that. Some people are really nice, and I really like this person. They I they have a soft spot in my life, and when you're going to hold them to account, it's easier just to go, oh, it's okay. Or sometimes people are bigger than you, and you have to hold them account, and they have a much higher level of confront. So fear comes up. It's like, oh, I'd rather not hold them account. to account. You know, and so there's many reasons why we don't hold people to account, but what needs to be done in order to hold people to account, then you've got to set up the environment that allows you to be able to hold people to account. Because if the environment is not set up, if the rules aren't set up, if the behaviors aren't agreed to and expected, it's very hard to drive accountability. And that's the job of a leader, whether you're leading a business, whether you're leading a division, a department, a household, a home, a committee. It doesn't matter. Is your job is to set that up as the leader. And when you set up the right environment, what you start doing is you start attracting the right people, and you start moving the wrong people on. But you've got to be able to hold up that mantle, because and I know this from experience. You'll just keep bringing people around you that don't drive accountability, don't drive responsibility, and you just go through cycles of frustration and irritation and getting pissed off. And you've got to go back. And the first step is you've got to go back and look at yourself as a leader and say, okay, where am I not holding people accountable? Where am I not driving that level of accountability? Where am I not driving that level of responsibility? What environment am I not creating to ensure that happens? And that's where we go back again. Environment is greater than will. You know, you create the right environment, you hold that space as a leader, and that's your job as a leader, is to hold that space. People will create results, the right result. If you don't, they won't. They'll create the wrong results. That's as simple as it is. In my world, it's not easy.
Yeah, and I think that was going to kind of be my next thing, right? Is that because it's those two things, right? Firstly, holding yourself accountable and responsible so that you can do it for others, right? Especially when you are leading. It's not an easy task. Yeah. Even if it doesn't matter if it's your family of 2 or departments of 100. If you are not, and as you said, you then got to look at which areas of your life you are not holding yourself accountable, which makes it hard for you to not hold others accountable, right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So and that's the hard part, I think, of the whole thing.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's one of those things where
it all comes back and starts with.
Yeah, it comes back full circle, right? And I think that's where we kind of sit when it comes to, like exactly what you said in the beginning, is that leadership is not a title, right? So it's important. How important is it? Let's just say you get that title of leader or whatever the case may be, or manager or whatever. How important is it to develop yourself once you get into that space? Once you get into a leadership role, I'm going to go specifically with roles.
Say that again.
Once you get into a leadership role, how important is it to develop yourself so that you are able, so your emotional intelligence, your understanding of accountability and responsibility, how important is it to develop that once you get into those positions? Because like you said, you see somebody who goes from a position where they're not in charge to suddenly in charge, and it changes.
Yeah, well, if they can't even take charge of themselves, how are they going to take charge of other people? It's a big mistake. People think because I have a title, I'm in charge. No, you just have a title. So part of becoming a leader is growing yourself. You will only ever lead. You will only ever lead a people based on how big you are. Once people that you're leading get bigger than you, well, they'll either take over your leadership or they'll leave you. Very, very simple. So for me, personal development is the critical component to leadership, because you can find many people that can do lots of things, Sully, but in my experience, it's hard to find people that will be who you need them to be when the heat and the pressure's turned up. And leadership is more about being able to stand in the heat and pressure than anything else. How many very smart people have you met who can tell you everything about everything, but you put them under a bit of heat and pressure and they crack?
Yeah, too many.
And then you have the other side of it, and I don't say they're not smart, but maybe not academically smart, but they know what they need to do and they know how to do it. And you put them under pressure, and friggin' heck, they excel. They'll find ways they'll find ways around it. They'll make a plan. They'll and that comes back to who do you need to be. That's your level of emotional intelligence. That's spiritual intelligence. That's your levels of discipline and all those type of things. You know, I was chatting to one of my coaches at the CrossFit box this morning, and we were talking about, you know, typically, ultimately, what type of people sort of stay in the CrossFit game, in the game of CrossFit, and people that stay in it for a long time are people that keep pushing themselves through heat and pressure. So you know, when the chips are down, they can get up and just keep frigging going. Now I say that because it's quite funny, because what do I love about it? I love the frigging heat and pressure. I love it when the chips are frigging down, when I'm absolutely exhausted and I got to draw on something that I didn't know I had and push through to the next level. That's what I love about business. That's what I love about being an entrepreneur. It's what I love about building teams. Why? Because there's never a day where there's not heat and pressure. There's always heat and pressure. The question is, how do you take on that heat and pressure? How do you work with that heat and pressure? How do you rechannel your efforts and your energies? Where do those efforts and energies go? You know, great question we were asked last week in Circle was, when stuff comes from the outside, when you get curveballs, how do you handle it? Well, and Nicole and I taught that, you know, the first thing you've got to realize is what you need to fight and what you can't fight, where your energies have to go. Because if you fight the wrong fights, you have a problem. And a lot of that comes down to who you are, your ability to be able to take control of your emotions, your ability to be able to stand in the heat, be able to look at the situation and go, okay, where is it best for my energies to go? You know what? I'm not going to take it over there. I'm going to take it over here. And for me, that's what great leaders are. They can stand in the heat. You know, Nelson Mandela could stand in the heat. Martin Luther King could stand in the heat. Mahatma Gandhi could stand in the heat. John F. Kennedy could stand in the heat. They stood in the heat. They stood up, you know, against a lot of people. You know, like him, don't like him, whatever. Like any leader, but you know, a guy that appears to be able to stand in the heat and stand up for what he believes in is Julius Malema, for example. You know, has a doctrine and will drive it, and he leads people that are connected to him, that connect to what he drives for and what he wants, and that's leadership. You know, and I think it's like any leader. You may or may not agree with them. The question is, what traits do they have? And when they are standing up for something and they are pushing against, often they push against the status quo, or they push against what other people, they can stand in the heat, and they can take heat and pressure. I mean, look at Donald Trump right now. You know, so yeah, you know, it comes back to your ability to be able to grow you. The bigger you can grow yourself, the bigger the people you can lead. And sadly, what I see is many people actually want to surround themselves around small people so that they can feel big. That's not big. Surround yourselves around big people so you can get bigger. And that allows you to, you know, when you surround yourself with bigger people than you, it allows you to grow so you can lead bigger people. But it comes back to creating the right environment for yourself, creating the right environment for the team, creating the right rules, the code of honor, the right values, the right values for you to achieve the results that you want to achieve, not anyone else, and that your team can achieve. Does that make sense?
It does indeed. And just like that, we are at the end of the podcast. That flew by. It went by really quickly, way quicker than I thought it would. Any final thoughts, Barry, before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I think just, you know, heat and pressure is always going to be there. In one of my favorite teachers and authors, Jordan Peterson, life is a struggle. Embrace it, because it's going to be a struggle. But grow yourself. Grow yourself as you're embracing it, because the bigger you become, the more heat and pressure you can handle. The bigger the game you can play. The bigger the game you can play, the bigger the people you can have around you. The bigger the people you'll connect with. The bigger the life you can live. The bigger the life you can live, the bigger the difference you can make in the world. Anyway, in my perspective, anyway. You know, and it's a journey. It's a journey that each of us goes on in our own time and our own timing. So yeah, embrace it. It's a wonderful thing. It's not always easy.
No,
It's not always easy. Heat and pressure is friggin' definitely not easy. You know, I've been through enough heat and pressure in business over the years, and I know more is coming. The bigger the game I want to play, the more people's lives I have a desire to affect. The further into Africa I want to teach, the more people that I want to, you know, bring into my team, the more heat and pressure I'm going to have to withstand. But the bigger that I have to become in order to withstand that. You know, the bigger the trainers I want around me, the bigger the trainer I have to become.
Yep.
And that's the game. So that's it. That's from me. Happy podcast.
Happy podcast. Thank you
Those
very
of you, those of you that are coming to Circle on Thursday, yeah, look forward to seeing you there. And if you haven't done sales, it is a life-changing program. I guarantee you, it's a life-changing program. It's 2 very, very intensive days. And if you want to learn to sell to yourself, if you want to learn to sell to others, if you want both a money growth program and a personal development program, come and join us for 2 days, 4th and 5th of August in Johannesburg for the Sales Explosion program. If you've already done it, we have a 50% discount for redos. If you haven't done it, click on the link and come and join us. If you can honestly come to me on Saturday evening and say, Barry, that was an absolute waste of time, I'll refund your money 100%. But you have to be there to be able to come and say that to me. But you won't, because it'll change your life. So thank you, Sully. Be awesome.
Thank you, Barry.
See you later in the week.
See you next week.